All right, UPSC hopefuls, let's get right into it today. We are diving deep into a relationship that's becoming more and more important, not just globally, but also for your UPSC mains exams.
Especially the international relations section, we're talking the European Union and India.
And our guide for this deep dive,
Yeah.
a recent analysis from the Hindu.
You know them for their great in-depth coverage.
And exactly, so we're going to go way beyond the headlines
Let's
today.
get into the why of this partnership. What's
Yeah.
the potential? Are there any roadblocks?
So much to unpack.
Yeah, it's fascinating how much attention the stalled free trade agreement talks have gotten.
Right, like that's been the big news.
It is, but getting hung up on just the trade deal, I think we miss the bigger picture.
So are you saying there's like a bigger story here?
Absolutely. The shift towards a broader strategic alliance.
Hmm.
This is way more than economic security, defense cooperation, technology partnerships.
Oh, wow. So this is definitely not just textbook stuff.
No, not at all. In all areas UPSC examiners love, by the way.
Right, of
Too.
course. But here's what I'm wondering about. India has these close ties with Russia and a complex relationship with China.
Yeah.
How does that work with Europe, especially with everything going on geopolitically right now?
That's a key point, and it brings up a really important concept for UPSC aspirants, non-alignment.
Non-alignment.
Essentially, India is trying to avoid being forced to pick sides between democracy and autocracy.
So in a way, they're kind of charting their own course.
Yeah, exactly. In a world that's getting more and more multipolar, meaning power isn't concentrated in just one nation or bloc anymore.
Okay, so it's about strategic autonomy.
Yeah.
Each nation figuring out where they stand in this shifting landscape.
You got it. And for Europe, that means acknowledging that India's approach is driven by pragmatism and their own strategic interests.
Interesting.
Like, look at Europe's own reliance on China for trade.
Ah, I see.
It complicates things and demands a more nuanced understanding from both sides.
That's a really good point. So how do you see this playing out? How do these two democracies find common ground when their approaches to global power seem so different?
Well, here's the thing. They both see the growing Russia-China partnership as a threat.
Okay.
That shared concern could be a strong foundation for them to build on.
All right, so we've got this shared concern, but also this difference in approach. Sounds like a delicate balancing act.
It is. There's a lot of potential, though. Think about defense, for example.
Oh.
India's already a major defense partner of the U.S., provides a model for Europe.
Makes sense.
Europe could offer India advanced defense tech, even become an alternative to Russia for certain systems.
That would be a huge shift.
Yeah.
What other concrete steps are we talking about here? How does this go from like aspiration to action?
Well, space exploration is promising. Both have ambitious space programs.
Yeah.
Joint ventures investments could lead to major breakthroughs.
And wouldn't that also boost their global standing in the space race?
You bet. And let's not forget technology, the EU-India Trade and Technology Council, or TTC, created for exactly this kind of collaboration. It's a platform for coordinating on crucial areas like quantum computing and biotechnology.
Oh, those are big ones, especially with China currently leading in those fields.
Exactly.
Okay, so staying competitive with China in those cutting-edge areas is a big motivator.
Huge.
I know India is on its way to becoming the world's third largest economy.
Yes.
What's the economic angle here for both sides? What makes this partnership beneficial beyond the strategic aspects?
Well, for Europe, it's access to a massive dynamic market. For India, attracting European tech and investment to fuel growth.
Okay.
Key sectors: green energy, pharmaceuticals, advanced manufacturing, digital innovation.
So this isn't just some abstract geopolitical game.
No.
This has real potential for jobs, economic growth for both regions.
For sure. And for UPSC folks, those specific sectors initiatives are prime examples to use in essays and current affairs answers.
Great tip.
Shows you get, you know.
So we've got strategic alignment, economic potential. But what about the people? How do you build trust and lasting connections between two regions with such different histories and cultures?
Right. There's the people factor,
Right.
often overlooked, but crucial to any international relationship.
Okay.
Student exchanges, easier travel work visas, recognizing professional qualifications.
Yeah, like building those personal connections that go beyond government agreements.
It's not just about governments talking, it's about societies connecting. And for UPSC, this human dimension is super important, shows a holistic perspective.
It does. All right, we've covered a lot here. The strategic reasons, the economic potential, the human connections, all really fascinating stuff. But there's another layer to this partnership we haven't even touched on yet.
Oh, and what's that?
Global challenges.
You're
Climate change, global health security threats, the big issues that cross borders and demand international collaboration.
right, and that's where the EU-India partnership could become even more impactful. They can be a force multiplier on the world stage.
Now that's a compelling thought. How exactly can they achieve that?
Well, let's consider climate change. Both are committed to tackling it.
Yeah.
But imagine pooling resources and expertise, joint renewable energy projects, tech sharing a united front in global climate negotiations.
So they can do more together than they could alone.
Absolutely.
Is it the same for other global issues?
For sure, take global health marriage. The pandemic showed how important cooperation is for developing and distributing vaccines.
Right. India was so vital with their pharmaceutical capabilities.
Right. Imagine what they could achieve with the EU's research and regulatory expertise.
That's a powerful image. Two major players collaborating instead of competing to solve problems that affect us all. This partnership is starting to feel a lot bigger than just the EU and India.
It is, and that's what makes it so significant. It's not just about advancing their own interests.
It's about contributing to a more stable, prosperous, and secure world.
Absolutely.
So it's not just about Europe and India. It's about a model for how democracies can work together to tackle these huge, complex issues.
Exactly, and it's about sending a signal to the world that cooperation and collaboration are the way forward.
This has been incredibly insightful, but before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to emphasize something for our UPSC aspirants listening in.
Please do. This is crucial information for them.
Understanding these global dynamics, the motivations, the key players and initiatives, it's all essential for your UPSC preparation. You need to connect the big picture to specific examples.
And don't be afraid to go deeper. Ask those why questions, dig into the nuances.
That's how you develop a deep understanding that will really shine through in your answers.
For sure.
We'll be back soon with part 2 of this deep dive, where we'll explore even more fascinating aspects of the EU-India partnership. But for now, take some time to reflect on what we've discussed so far. What aspects of this relationship do you find most intriguing? What questions do you have? Jot down your thoughts, do some further research, and be ready to jump back into the conversation.
This is a dynamic topic that's constantly evolving.
Right, so staying informed is crucial. And who knows, maybe you'll even find some inspiration for your UPSC essay. Until next time.
Happy studying.
Happy studying.
Welcome back, everyone. We're picking up our exploration of this EU-India partnership, a relationship that's really moving fast on the world stage.
It is.
In the last part, we talked about the why of this partnership.
Right, the strategic stuff, the economic potential, and of course those human connections.
Now, to really get how this works, and this is especially important for our UPSC folks,
Absolutely.
we got to look at the specifics.
Right, you need those concrete details, real-world examples to bring it all to life.
Exactly. So where do we see this playing out in practice?
Well, remember how we talked about that consistent engagement at all levels, government, business, people to people?
Yeah.
That's where the substance comes in?
Okay, so it's not just about, the big summits and the diplomatic handshakes.
No, it's got to go deeper.
It's about those deeper connections.
Right, let's start with the government level.
Think about that EU-India Trade and Technology Council, the TTC we mentioned earlier.
Right.
Prime example of that high-level platform where both sides are coordinating on trade technology security policies.
Makes sense.
And make sure they're on the same page, working towards the same goals.
So for UPSC folks, this is the kind of institutional framework they should know.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just know that the EU and India are collaborating. You got to understand the mechanisms that drive that collaboration.
Exactly. Got to show that deeper level of knowledge the UPSC examiners are looking for.
So of course, now beyond the government, we also see this collaboration in action at the business level.
Oh, yeah. Tons of chambers of commerce, industry associations, business forums. They're actively making things happen with trade and investment between the EU and India.
So they're like creating a space for businesses to connect.
Yeah, explore opportunities and navigate the whole, sometimes complicated reality of working in each other's markets.
Right. It's about making an ecosystem where businesses can thrive.
Exactly, and contribute to economic growth for both regions.
Makes sense. And that's where we see those specific examples of collaboration, the details that help you understand.
Right, like you could research joint ventures between European and Indian companies, or look at how those industry associations are working to streamline regulations, promote investment.
Great tips for our listeners preparing for the UPSC. Now, what about the people-to-people level? How does this partnership play out in terms of like everyday interactions and exchanges?
This is where it gets really interesting. Remember, we talked about that cultural understanding, those personal connections,
Yeah.
building a stronger relationship. Well, there are tons of initiatives promoting this type of exchange.
So things like student exchange programs, cultural festivals, academic collaborations, maybe even some joint tourism initiatives.
Exactly. And they might seem small compared to government agreements, but they can have a huge impact on perceptions and building trust long term.
Right. It's about recognizing that international relations aren't just governments talking to each other.
Right.
It's a whole web of interactions with people at all levels of society.
Exactly. And for UPSC folks, it's about showing a well-rounded understanding of how international relations work.
Right.
Remember, examiners value a holistic perspective. They want to see you get the importance of these soft power elements, the cultural stuff, the interpersonal stuff that can often be as powerful as those formal agreements and treaties.
So acknowledging these softer aspects of the relationship shows a more nuanced understanding of how international relations actually work.
Exactly. It shows broader awareness of how people, businesses, cultural exchanges all contribute to a stronger, more lasting partnership.
Really fascinating stuff. But before we go too far, I want to make sure our listeners, especially those gearing up for the UPSC, are catching the key points here.
Of course, got to distill those essential insights.
Right. So when analyzing the EU-India relationship, what should UPSC aspirants be focusing on?
First, strategic context. Why is this happening now? What are the big forces driving it? The rise of China, the shifts in global power, the need for democracies to work together.
So it's not just about the EU and India alone. It's about how they fit into the bigger picture.
Right. Second, identify the key areas of cooperation. We talked about some defense technology, trade, climate change. Those people-to-people connections, be able to give specific examples within each area.
And remember, the details are important. UPSC examiners love to see that you've gone beyond the headlines. And you can give those concrete examples like the EU-India Trade and Technology Council, the business forums, the cultural exchange programs we talked about.
Exactly. It shows you really understand how this works in the real world.
Third, analyze the potential benefits and the challenges. What are the opportunities? What are the possible roadblocks? Things like trade barriers, regulations, geopolitical tensions, even cultural misunderstandings.
Yeah, that's where your critical thinking comes in. The examiners don't just want you to repeat facts.
Right. They want to see you analyze the complexities, weigh the pros and cons, come up with your own informed perspective.
Exactly. Show you can think critically and engage with the material.
Okay. And finally,
Never underestimate the human dimension. How are people interacting? How are they shaping this partnership? Think about those student exchanges, academic collaborations, cultural festivals, even tourism.
so it's not just governments and treaties. It's about building real connections, understanding between people.
Precisely. And for UPSC, that's key. Show that you get the human dimension of this partnership. It shows a more nuanced, well-rounded understanding of international relations.
Excellent points. These are the kind of insights that will help our listeners stand out in those exams.
And beyond exams, understanding these dynamics will help you engage with the world in a more informed way. That's what education's all about, right?
Beautifully said. Our deep dive isn't over yet. We still have some fascinating stuff to cover. When we return for part 3, we'll zoom out even further and look at the implications of this EU-India partnership for the global balance of power and the future of democracy itself.
Don't miss it. Be sure to have your thinking caps on. We'll be right back.
All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We've been unpacking this EU-India partnership. We've looked at the strategic reasons behind it,
Yeah.
the economic opportunities, and of course, the vital role of those people-to-people connections.
Right, right.
Now, in this final part, we're going to zoom out and look at the global implications.
Okay.
What does this relationship mean for the world stage?
This is where it gets really interesting. You know, especially when you think about those bigger trends in international relations. We're not just talking about two regional powers working together.
Right.
This could be a shift in the global balance of power
Wow.
with ripple effects around the world.
So how does this partnership fit into that larger puzzle? What are the implications for everyone?
Well, think about it like this at a time when democratic values are under pressure. The EU and India coming together sends a powerful signal.
Right.
It shows that democracies can and will collaborate to defend their shared interests and principles.
It's almost like they're creating a counterweight to those autocratic forces we talked about.
Exactly, like that growing alliance between Russia and China. And that has implications for everything from security to trade to how technology develops.
So you're saying it's about more than just economics and politics.
Way more. It's about values.
Values.
Imagine a world where democratic values are embedded in those critical technologies like AI and biotech.
That's a powerful thought because it paints a very different picture than a future where those technologies are controlled by authoritarian regimes.
Exactly. And the EU-India partnership could shape that future in a positive way.
Okay.
By working together, they can set standards, promote ethical frameworks, and make sure those technologies are used to benefit everyone, not for control and repression.
And we can't forget about the economic side of things. We talked about India becoming a global economic powerhouse.
Right.
Combine that with the EU's strength, and you've got a real force in the global market.
For sure, this partnership could unlock new markets, boost global trade, and drive innovation.
So this isn't just about Europe and India winning.
No, it's about a ripple effect that spreads prosperity and opportunity around the world.
So it's not just self-interest. They're working to create a more stable and cooperative global system.
That's a crucial point, and it's especially important when we think about the challenges we face today: climate change, pandemics, security threats.
Right, these are huge problems.
No single nation can solve them alone. They need a collaborative approach.
So how does this partnership contribute to that? What are they actually doing to address these global challenges?
Well, we've touched on some examples already. Climate change, both the EU and India are committed to reducing emissions and moving towards cleaner energy.
Yeah.
Imagine the impact if they pool resources, share technologies, coordinate on a global scale.
So they can amplify their efforts by working together.
Right, potentially speed up progress on these critical issues.
Makes sense. Does the same principle apply to other challenges?
Absolutely. Global health, for instance, the EU and India could collaborate on vaccine development and distribution, pandemic preparedness, strengthening healthcare systems in developing countries.
So again, collaboration over competition.
Right, finding solutions that benefit everyone.
This has been an incredible conversation. We've covered a lot of ground, from those specific trade deals to the bigger picture of global geopolitics.
We have.
But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about,
Okay.
especially those getting ready for those UPSC exams.
A good question to ponder.
If this EU-India partnership really works, if it reaches its full potential, what could it mean for the world? What kind of future could we see?
Wow, that's a great question. It really challenges us to think big, beyond the headlines and imagine a future where cooperation is at the center of the global order,
Right, not confrontation.
where democratic values are driving progress.
Yeah, a future where everyone benefits.
Exactly.
And for those prepping for the UPSC, that kind of big picture thinking is essential.
It is.
The examiners are looking for people who not only understand the world as it is,
Right.
but also have the vision to see what it could be.
They want to see that you can analyze, connect the dots, and articulate a vision for a better future.
So keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, and keep those minds engaged.
Absolutely.
We've only scratched the surface of this topic, and as this partnership evolves, we'll be here to break it all down for you.
We will.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this deep dive with your fellow UPSC enthusiasts. We'll see you next time for another insightful exploration.